Welcome to What the Comp, the Pay Strategy Podcast, where compensation stops being confusing and starts making sense for real organizations. I'm Jennifer Loftus, National Director at Astron Solutions. And today, we're talking about starting salary offers for new hires. More specifically, we're talking about why one of the biggest internal pay problems in your organization may be created before an employee even starts. Because here's the truth. Most organizations think hiring offers are about bringing talent in. And they are. But hiring offers are also compensation decisions. They are internal equity decisions. They are budget decisions. They are culture decisions. And over time, they become trust decisions. The problem is that many organizations treat hiring offers like isolated moments. A candidate applies. The manager likes them. The organization wants to move quickly. The candidate has expectations. The market feels competitive. That recruiter, they want to close. And the manager wants the person. And suddenly, the conversation becomes very simple. What do we need to offer to get them? That question matters, but it cannot be the only question. Because if hiring offers are made only to win the candidate, without considering the compensation system around that offer, the organization may solve one problem and create 5 more. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Your hiring process may be creating internal pay problems faster than your compensation team can fix them. Not because anyone is trying to create inequity, not because hiring managers have bad intentions, not because recruiters are careless, but because hiring is pressure. And pressure reveals whether your compensation structure can hold. Let's put this into a real workplace moment. There's an open role, and it's been open for far too long. The team is stretched. The manager's frustrated. The work is piling up, candidates are moving quickly, and then finally, you find someone strong. They interview well. They have the knowledge, skills, and competencies for success. They seem like the right fit. Everyone is excited. And then compensation enters the conversation. The candidate wants more than expected. Maybe more than the posted hiring range. Maybe more than the full pay range midpoint. Maybe more than current employees in the same role. Maybe more than the manager thought the position would cost. And now the organization has a decision to make. Do we hold the line? Do we stretch? Do we make an exception? Do we risk losing the candidate? Do we risk creating compression? Do we risk upsetting current employees? And in that moment, many organizations choose the immediate problem. They want to close that offer. So they stretch. They adjust. They approve the exception. They tell themselves, this is just the market. It is what it is. Or maybe they say, we had to do it. It's a tough hiring environment. We'll deal with the internal issues later. And sometimes that may be the right decision. But too often, later never arrives, and instead becomes the problem. Because the new hire starts, and now they are paid more than someone with more tenure, or more than someone with deeper institutional knowledge, or more than someone who trained them, or more than someone who has been waiting for a pay adjustment, or maybe all 4. And suddenly, what looked like a hiring success becomes an internal equity issue. That's where this gets messy. The organization didn't make the offer to create a pay problem. It made the offer to fill a role. But compensation systems don't care about intent. They respond to decisions. And every hiring offer becomes part of the system. So why do hiring offers create so many internal pay problems? There are a few patterns we see consistently. One reason this happens is that organizations focus too heavily on candidate expectations and not enough on internal placement. The candidate says what they want. The market says what competitors may be paying. The manager says what they need. The recruiter says what it may take to close the deal. All of that information matters. But the organization also needs to ask, where should this person sit inside our structure? Compared to the salary range, compared to their peers, compared to current employees, compared to their experience, compared to their skills, compared to their competencies, compared to the work they will actually perform. Because the offer is not just about what the candidate asks for. It's about where that candidate belongs inside the organization's pay system. And if that question is skipped, the offer may feel competitive externally, but unfair internally. Another place this breaks down is urgency. Hiring urgency can override compensation discipline very quickly. And honestly, that's understandable. Vacancies are expensive. Delayed hiring creates stress. Managers get impatient. Teams absorb the extra work. Overtime costs spike. Customers may feel it. Service may suffer. Revenue may be affected. So when a strong candidate appears, the pressure to move quickly is real. But compensation decisions made under pressure often become exceptions. And exceptions become precedent. One urgent offer becomes another urgent offer. One stretched salary becomes the new expectation. One department gets approval, and another department wants that same flexibility. And before long, the organization no longer has a clear hiring pay strategy. It has a collection of exceptions. The next issue is that salary ranges are not always used consistently. Some organizations have ranges, but treat them like suggestions. Some use them for current employees, but ignore them for new hires. Some allow offers anywhere in the range without clear guidance on what justifies placement at a specific point in the pay range. Some post a range publicly, but still negotiate outside of it privately. And that creates confusion. Because salary ranges are supposed to create structure. They should help the organization answer, what is the job worth? What is the market telling us? What level of experience justifies higher placement in the range? What does internal equity require? When is an exception appropriate? But if the range only exists on paper and every offer becomes a negotiation, the range is not really guiding decisions. It's just sitting there, a relic of someone's past work. And a salary range that does not guide decisions will not protect internal equity. Another issue is that managers often do not see the internal equity consequences of hiring offers. A manager may be focused on filling that role. And that makes sense. They're thinking about the workload, the team, the deadlines, the candidate, and the business need. But they may not be thinking about what happens 6 months later, when a current employee learns that that new hire is making more than them. or when a promotion conversation becomes harder, or when a pay equity review shows a pattern not favorable to the organization, or when pay compression spreads across the team. That's not because managers are not caring. It's because they are often not shown the full compensation picture. They see the hiring problem. Human resources and finance often see the system problem. And those two views need to come together before the offer goes out. The final issue is that organizations sometimes confuse external competitiveness with internal fairness. External competitiveness matters. You need to attract talent. You need to respond to the market. You need to understand what candidates can earn elsewhere. But internal fairness matters too. Employees compare. Employees notice. Employees talk to one another. They may not know every salary, but they can sense when something feels off. And when new hire pay repeatedly moves faster than internal pay, employees start to ask hard questions. Why did my loyalty not matter? Why did my experience here not matter? Why did the person coming in receive more than me when I'm already doing the work and doing it well? Why did the person coming in receive more than me when I'm the one training them? Why do I have to leave my job and reapply for it to be paid competitively? That last question is dangerous. Because once employees believe the best way to grow pay is to leave, the organization has a retention problem. And it may have created that retention problem through hiring. Here's the key point. Hiring offers are not just talent acquisition decisions. They are compensation system decisions. And if your hiring process is not connected to your compensation strategy, you will eventually create internal pay problems. So what do you do? Because organizations still need to hire. They still need to compete. They still need to move quickly. But speed cannot replace structure. Starting Monday, review where new hires are landing in your salary ranges. Not just whether the offer was accepted. Where did the person's pay rate land? Near the range minimum? Near the range midpoint? Above the range midpoint? Above current employees' pay rates? Outside the range? And what justified that placement? Because if you cannot explain where new hires land, you may not be able to defend the offer later. Starting Monday, compare new hire pay to current employee pay before the offer is finalized. Not after, before. Who's already in the role? Who has similar responsibilities? Who has more experience? Who has longer tenure? Who may be affected by this pay decision? Because the time to identify compression is before the offer goes out, not after the employee starts. Starting Monday, define what justifies offer placement. Is it experience, knowledge, skills, competencies, certifications, market scarcity, leadership responsibility, internal equity, hard-to-fill role status? There must be guidance. Because without guidance, every offer becomes a negotiation. And when every offer becomes a negotiation, the strongest negotiator wins, not necessarily the most equitable outcome. Starting Monday, set limits on exceptions. Exceptions will happen, but they need rules and guide rails. Who approves them? What documentation is required? How often are they reviewed? What happens if exceptions become common? Happen more than once a quarter? Because if an exception happens repeatedly, it is probably not an exception anymore. It's a signal that the structure needs attention. Starting Monday, connect talent acquisition, human resources, finance, and managers around the same new hire offer strategy. Hiring cannot operate separately from compensation. Recruiters need guidance. Managers need context. Human resources needs visibility. Finance needs to understand the long-term cost. And leadership needs to understand that new hire offer decisions create ripple effects. Because hiring well is not just about getting someone to say yes. It's about bringing someone in without breaking the system around them. So here's where we land. Hiring offers matter. They affect employee attraction, organizational competitiveness, organizational speed, and manager confidence. But they also affect internal equity, compression, retention, trust, and the long-term credibility of your compensation system. If hiring offers are made in isolation, they may solve today's vacancy, but create tomorrow's pay problem. And that is why the hiring process has to be connected to compensation strategy. Not loosely connected, directly connected. Because every offer sends a message to the candidate, to the manager, to finance, to human resources, and eventually to the employees already inside your organization. If this is something your organization is working through, or if new hire offers are starting to create uncomfortable internal pay questions, you're not alone. We see this all the time. Organizations are trying to compete for talent, but without the right structure, they may be competing against their own internal equity. And if it's helpful, please reach out and mention the episode. We genuinely love to hear what you're seeing, where hiring offers are creating tension, and how your organization is trying to balance market pressure with internal fairness. Thanks for listening to What the Comp. If this made you think, please send it to someone who is involved in hiring offers right now. Because if your hiring process is creating internal pay problems, your compensation system and your entire organization will feel it later. This is What the Comp.